Thank you for checking out this video on rnrmagonline.com. It's another Ask the Expert interview, and this time I am joined by Jordan Hendler, who is the organizer of the Property Insurance Restoration Conference. Although I have to say that it's much more than a conference these days. It's way more than a conference. This group of people, they continue to grow every time I'm getting new emails and seeing the website. There's more and more people, more and more organizations and contractors involved, and they are doing some really big things in the industry to help move things forward and make a more level playing field for contractors. So Jordan, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to kick it over to you and ask you to start by telling us a little bit of the background of PIRC.
Sure. And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This is a really cool segment, and I think it's like really great what you're doing, giving insight to people, especially by video. It's a little easier than reading sometimes. So inflection matters, right? So being able to hear what people say when they say it is really cool. So thank you. Appreciate it. I would, I guess, start with how I came to be in the industry, because I'm actually not from this industry. I am from the dark side of claims, as some people say. On the auto side, I've worked 22 years in the collision industry as a conference organizer, which actually is how we came to be here. So I was approached, at the time it was actually myself and my dad. So I know a lot of people in the industry are used to working with families, so this is probably not a new concept for anyone. But he actually started what's known as the Collision Industry Conference in the very early 80s under the same premise, and I'll get to that for sure. But I've been working with him for all that time, trying to grow a conference surrounding this platform that's open dialogue based, and it brings all industry segments together. They've grown actually to be usually between 350 and 450 participants from every segment of the industry. So it's really cool. It's really collaborative. They've got like 12 committees. So we're really used to that format in that side of the claims industry, if you could say it that way. The really cool thing is, not only were we discussing the possibility of this conference with contractor organizations like RIA, but we were also approached by insurance carriers who were involved. They said, we really need something like this on the property side. There needs to be a place where people can come together from every segment to look at things. So how PIRC really got its start was that initial inquiry to us to say, hey, would you guys be interested in being an uninterested, bipartisan is a pretty spunky word lately. So we'll say I'm an uninterested party that is coming into the industry to try to give this platform for people to share their ideas. So it's different than a traditional like sit and learn meeting. People are used to coming to a meeting, sitting there, basically getting a download and not having much interaction, maybe Q&A at the end. But this meeting is like a unique open dialogue meeting for the entire industry for every segment. So, I know we're talking a lot about contractors today, but it really is like carriers, TPAs, vendors, software companies, it's everybody. And that's really the whole point, is we can get all these segments together. So a lot of people like to think of it, oh, it's an advocacy group, kind of like the RIA, AGA, and I say, it is advocacy in some ways because everybody can advocate for themselves or their segment, but no one segment has priority over the other. So everybody's heard equally. And, I think it would be really cool, if you don't mind, if I just share like the mission. And I know that's usually like the snooze button for some people, but I think our mission actually really says what we do. So I'll just read it really quick. So it's a forum where property insurance and restoration industry stakeholders come together for discussions, enhance understanding, heightening transparency, finding common ground, and communicating possible solutions and/or best practices to improve their industry. So, issues presented in our format, we deal with like communication, technology, aspects of relationships that anybody sees room for improvement. So that could go from, transparency, which is like fact finding, or, what really does this issue mean? Doing some research, bringing it back and presenting, all the way to a possible solution like a work product. So not all will have a work product. not all will have a solution because some problems are still, not able to be solved, but we do our best to collaboratively work together and, have a committee structure and all of that. So that's how PIRC is structured and how it got its start.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to skip a couple questions here. I'm curious what you view as the biggest accomplishment of PIRC so far.
Oh, okay. So what we've biggest accomplishments. Okay, so other than getting all industry segments to enthusiastically work together in a room, which in of itself is a huge accomplishment. I think, intrinsically, that's a value that people see. That's why when they come for the first time, they typically keep coming. So for us, tangibly, and I have a list because right now we have so many things that we've been working on. I don't want to leave any committee out. But tangibly, our definitions committee, the very first work product we approved, which was a celebration for sure, was the best practices for photo documentation. And that is very crucial for both the contractors and the carriers. The ability to properly document on site was a big pain point that was brought up by carriers and contractors. So this was actually where we were able to work that mission start to finish. What's the issue? What are the components of it? How could we come up with this possible solution? So that document was really cool. It was the first approved by the body. So they approved it, everybody. It's utilized by contractors, carriers. We have some really cool stories we're actually going to be sharing press release soon. So that's cool about people using it to improve their documentation. And definitely more to come like that. There's more things. We also have an approved recommendation for background screening standard. That is definitely something, and it has parameters. There's a lot of supporting documentation on our website too for that. But that issue was definitely brought forward by multiple segments. And it's really to try to give a solution to all the varying requirements out there. It's so confusing. Compliance by contractors has definitely been a struggle. And I understand the risk averse, world that carriers live in, why they would ask for these things. And, during that transparency, discovery type of place that we always go to when an issue gets presented, understanding why the carriers and TPAs are requiring those, you do understand when you really dig deep why they are resorting to the most intrusive, I guess a contractor would say. They're like, why do they need civil check? Why do they have to go back to the age of 18? It's just a source of frustration and, again, huge pain point, right? So it was interesting to me that when we dug down deep and, we had carriers say, we don't want to do this, but because of the definition of business of insurance from the Violent Crimes Control Act and how the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, came up with this definition, now contractors are deemed like insurance personnel. Well, if they're insurance personnel, they have to be, background screened to the same standard. So that's where this came from. And a lot of people didn't even know that. And I would imagine a lot of our viewership from this wouldn't know that either.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are just like, why do they do this to us? They're just mean. They're just, they want more information about our businesses. It's none of their business. I have heard everything. So I definitely see where they're coming from, where the contractor is coming from. And this is a work and effort towards resolution. This is a long game thing. It takes adoption, obviously. And we're not an advocacy group. So it's, hey, industry, here's this thing we worked on. We think that it'll improve in, efficiency. We think it'll improve workforce. We think that, there's a lot of benefit to it, but they need to come and adopt it. So, that's the little bit difference between a conference and an advocacy association like RIA is that, we put it out there, but we're not going to make anybody comply. We're not a compliance. We're not advocating for it. We just recommend it. So On top of that, because there's so many other cool things, so we have that recommendation for the standard for background screening, but we also, this year, this February, before the world turned upside down and inside out, we also approved a standard language elements for practical application of program agreements, which is a really long way of saying it's a template for writing and implementing insurer or TPA program agreements. So it's, think of it like an Accord type or MSDS type method that all important aspects of that would be front and center, easily identified. If a contractor has multiple partners, then they, can struggle to find those particulars, and especially in the field, it causes inefficiency, delay, customer frustration. I mean, relationship issues. So, this is to help with that compliance, reduce the pain point, for that benefit for them, and the insurer obviously benefits by, improved compliance, reduced cycle time. Is the name I use, but it's reducing touch time, and most importantly, the customer has an improved experience. So we often talk about the customer and how the work that we're trying to do to improve relationships is going to directly affect them. So those are the accomplishments we've had all the way up till this year, and there's absolutely more to come.
Yes, I believe that. So, so what do you attribute? Obviously, I feel like these are concrete examples of my next question. So what do you attribute the momentum of PIRC to? I mean, it's only been around for a few years now, and it already is gaining momentum and being recognized by the industry. And there are some big industry leaders who are involved in the RIA and, other big companies. So what do you attribute to the momentum that you're seeing?
So it's clear to me that the industry they want ways to work collaboratively, and especially at a really high level, within every segment. Like you said, there's a lot of higher ups. They want to be able to share ideas that could help the industry in a meaningful way, but not just to share, but to have possibility of resolution of some kind, even if that is that transparency we talked about. But just coming to the understanding of the various aspects of issues. It's also how work products can come about as possible solutions, and we're routinely surveying the industry to find feedback, individual perspectives, critical topics for initiatives or work that the committees can do. So I think that's kind of the cool thing is there's the conference itself that people can attend, but then in between there's these committees doing all of this work. So, there's a lot of things in the wings I hope we can get to share. But I do think that it's because they see the value in coming together and not being one-sided.
Okay, so what's ahead? What are you guys working on now? I think your next conference is in October, I believe. And then what's ahead for 2021? I mean, the world has gotten turned upside down, and so now what?
So, we have a lot in process. One of the things that we've talked about a lot is our data standards committee. So think of, as a contractor, their frustration is in copy and paste, right? They can't stand this continuous inefficiency, admin burden, whatever you want to call it, it's copy paste. So the contractors have interest in that, but every segment does, especially carriers, especially software vendors. Here's why. So it addresses for all segments the seamless transfer of data. So it's within the technology, it's reducing manual entry, but it's also creating marketplace, it's welcoming innovation. So if picture open architecture with also security, the entire claims ecosystem would benefit from that, as well as the higher efficiency and accuracy. So the human factor is less of an issue. Contractors would love it for the same reason carriers would love it, which is, if I put it in one time, it can go to the places I need it to go without having to rekey. So it's a more integrations. It's going to be in the collision industry where it happened first. So this is where we know this from. The claim system saw massive innovation after data standards were implemented. I mean, new companies, their burden to come to the marketplace was almost none. There's not like this reinventing the wheel all the time. I mean, with technology today, this seems absolutely ridiculous. So, obviously our desire is to have every software company, large and small, being a part of the committee. Every contractor, everybody who has interest in seeing that efficiency happen. They don't have to be a techie. That's a misnomer, right? You don't have to know all of the, IFX standard or, you don't need to understand all of those things to be a part of it, because we talk about the business aspect a lot. We talk about the way that the businesses interact with each other, and that's a high level thing. That's not getting down in the weeds. Will we get to the technical aspects? Absolutely, because we are writing that standard. We are coming up with the estimate message standard. That's our baseline. So that committee is very exciting. There's a lot going on. But yeah, I mean, carriers are highly vested in an improved data system, and as everybody knows, data is gold, right? So if you want to deal with your gold better, then this is definitely the work we're trying to do. So that's a big thing. Our definitions committee has done a lot of recent work with industry terms. So one of the complaints, and this came a lot from contractors voicing their concerns over interpretations of terms. So think of customer contacted, right? What does that mean to you? What does that mean to me? Two different things. And as many possible definitions as there are, that's what creates the confusion. So what we did was we looked at industry terms like that: customer contacted, job start. What constitutes job start? Some people say, oh, well, it's, when I swing a hammer. Other people say it's when I left the building. I mean, some of them have 25 possible action related items that could be deemed the definition of one word. So we've looked at all the possible definitions that people have submitted based on their work with carriers or TPAs, as well as like, how is it presented in the, exactware system, as for instance. That's a field, but does the field have a definition? In some cases, there actually is one. In other cases, there's not. So it really is left up to interpretation by whoever puts the number in, or whoever thinks they know what the definition is. So that's something we've been doing. Other terms like site visited, job completed, what do those mean? And that's a measurement contractors are so keen on, that key to key and what that means, how they're measured, and very exciting conversations come with those terms. So that's why it's so cool when we're able to say, okay, well, there's even other terms for customer contacted, right? So we came up with, here's the possible terms, here's all the possible action items that a contractor could have taken. And now our goal is to come up with what is the industry's understanding of those, and kind of matrix work that out. I'm getting a little bit in the weeds on it, but needless to say, that's work we're doing. We're really trying to bridge that gap of understanding there. And, same with overhead and profit is, ooh, that's a taboo one, right? No one wants to talk about it. So the first thing we wanted to do, just because this is so sensitive, right? It can be an eruptive conversation. There can be, keeping that professional is actually kind of difficult because, a lot of people's profitability is tied to that discussion. So what we were looking at is, what is overhead and profit versus cost items, and what are people's understandings of that? So interestingly, when we surveyed our meeting in February, which was our last in person, and for the rest of the world. You know, we surveyed all of the attendees, and it's no surprise that all of the survey feedback was all over the place. Some things there is common understanding. You know, oh, that thing, I know exactly where that fits. It fits in overhead and profit, or it fits in job cost. I know exactly where that goes. There seemed to be some common understanding. But in a lot of items, it's all over the place. So our goal is to also bring clarity to that. We are not advocating, you know, for a change in applicability of overhead and profit, or what that number is as percentage. Those aren't the things we're trying to do. We're trying to get definition, because definition and clarity leads to those intersegment relationships having improvement. So that's the other really big one, I'd say, like the definition committee is working on. So, you know, I'm sure there's more to come. The working projects list of many of these committees is this long, but they're trying to, you know, take one thing at a time, have accomplishment, and move on to the next thing. So that's been our way of working so far. So those are the upcoming things in this year.
Okay, those are exciting.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, so this is a question that I've been asking everybody. We are recording this, if people are watching down the road, we're recording this in late summer of 2020, when the world has changed quite a bit. So what do you believe restoration contractors need to be doing now to stay relevant and profitable in the property loss and insurance restoration landscape now?
So I think it's participation. I think it's participation everywhere. I think it's to vocalize, but listen, like, you know, hear with intent to understand. That's kind of a theme of 2020, right? So that is definitely something that we promote within our conference. I'm a huge advocate personally of associations. I think that everybody, every segment, if you have a professional association, you need to be a part of it. And not only do you need to pay your dues, but you need to participate. So you need to get involved, whatever it means. So I highly recommend people are generally passionate about something, or their expertise is very focalized and they could, you know, contribute in a meaningful way. And you know, contribution is a huge measure in, you know, benefits. So some people think, well, what am I getting out of it? You're in it for the wrong reason. But tangibly, I have seen, you know, and this crosses both industries, collision repair and contractors. So I'll speak just to those particular relatable segments. So I see the most successful collision repairers in their industry are at every national meeting. They're talking to the vehicle manufacturers. They're talking to the vendors. They're talking to the insurance companies. They're trying to gain not just connection and networking, you know, but they're gaining understanding. The people who are in the room nationally, they know things before anybody in their marketplace. I see that time and time again. I've seen it already in these past few years in the contractor space. We've had announcements come out of our conference that people knew at our conference that they could not have known unless they were there. And so I really think, you know, if I'm a contractor, I'm going to be a member of every possible organization. I'm going to attend the national conferences. And even if I don't agree with people, that's not the point. The point is to get those relationships. The point is to get the education. The point is to be able to contribute. And even if contributing means vocalizing what offends you, what ails you, what your successes are. If you have something really exciting, that should be something you share. Let's lift everybody up. Rising tide lifts all boats, right? So that's what I would say. You know, that goes for all segments too, by the way. Like, even if I'm an insurer, I want to know the industry. I want to know what people are saying about us. If I'm a claims manager, I have seen on the collision industry, I would say a top 5 insurance carrier came to the collision conference. They heard what people were saying about them and they changed their ways. it was unbelievable, unprecedented, and yet continued to happen forward. So it's a, to me, it's just about being in the right rooms, but support your association. That's a big deal.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Jordan, well, thank you. Those are all my questions. Do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
No, I think, we're meeting on October 21. So if anyone catches this before that, we would love to have you. Come check it out, listen. Um, as always with our meetings, you have the right to speak. So everybody can come to the proverbial microphone while we're virtual. They can raise their hand and speak. They can ask questions of anybody. They can raise any issue, which is the whole point of our conference. What makes it different is that people can vocalize those issues. So, they can also get involved with committees. We have all of the work that I just talked about is committee based. So that's where some people call it minutia. I call it the exciting conversations, because that's where the fun stuff gets debated. So yeah, we are on not Instagram, sorry. We could be, but we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we have the website. So, come check us out, share. If you use one of the work products, tell us about it. We love feedback. So yeah, I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you sharing our conference with the world. And yeah, we hope to keep continuing growing, even though we're virtual right now, we're still even growing there. And I can't wait till we can be in person again. So thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you, Jordan. And for those watching, it's go to PIRC.com so you can register, check out more, check out what the committees are doing, all the things. Thank you, Jordan. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you so much.